John couldn't believe his luck when he was selected for the prestigious intergalactic cultural exchange program. As a graduate student studying xenobiology, this was the opportunity a lifetime. He eagerly packed his bags, ready to embark on an adventure beyond his wildest dreams. Upon arriving at the bustling metropolis of Zorkum Prime, John was greeted by his new roommate, Asilov. The Zorkum was a gangly, tentacled creature with a perpetually curious expression etched across their gelatinous features. "Welcome, welcome, John Human," Silov exclaimed, their voice a peculiar gurgling sound that took some getting used to. "I am so honored to be your roommate during your stay on our humble planet. There is so much for you to learn." John smiled nervously, already feeling a bit out of his depth. "It's great to meet you, Silov. I can't wait to experience your culture and learn all about your species." As they made their way to their shared living quarters, Silov bombarded John with a barrage of questions. "Tell me, John Human, what are the mating rituals of your kind? How do you reproduce? I must know everything." John felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment. Well, that's a rather personal topic. Humans typically don't discuss those things so openly." Silov's bulbous eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, I see. Forgive me, I did not realize it was a sensitive subject. On Zorkan, we are very open about such matters, but I will respect your customs." The two settled into their new living space, and John couldn't help but marvel at the strange and alien architecture. Zorkan homes were constructed from a gelatinous, translucent material that seemed to shift and flow, almost as if it were alive. "This is where we will be residing during your stay," Silov announced, gesturing grandly. "I hope you find it comfortable. Please make yourself at home." John nodded, already feeling a bit overwhelmed. He took a seat on what appeared to be a cushioned platform, watching as Silov glided effortlessly around the room, their tentacles rippling with each movement. "Now, John Human, I must know, what are your favorite human foods? I wish to prepare a traditional Zorkum welcoming feast for you." Well, I'm honestly not sure what Zorkum cuisine is like," John admitted, "but I'm happy to try anything you recommend." Silov let out a delighted trill. "Excellent. You will love it, I'm sure. Zorkan food is simply divine. We must celebrate your arrival in style." As Silov disappeared into what John assumed was the kitchen, he took a moment to collect his thoughts. This was all happening so fast, the whirlwind of travel, the strange new environment, and the sheer enthusiasm of his alien roommate. He took a deep breath, reminding himself to approach this experience with an open mind. "John Human, I have prepared a most delectable Zorkan delicacy for you to sample," Silov announced, gliding back into the room with a steaming platter. "This is called a Ziggoth flare. It is sure to tantalize your taste buds." John eyed the dish skeptically, taking in the peculiar, bubbling substance that seemed to shimmer and pulsate. Mustering his courage, he took a small bite, bracing himself for an unfamiliar flavor. To his surprise, the Ziggoth flare burst with a symphony of tantalizing sensations, a perfect blend of savory, sweet, and a hint of something he couldn't quite place. John's eyes widened in delight as he eagerly took another bite. Silov watched with unbridled enthusiasm, their tentacles swaying with joy. "You enjoy it? I knew you would. Zorkan cuisine is simply unparalleled." John nodded enthusiastically, his earlier apprehensions slowly melting away. "This is amazing, Silov. Thank you for sharing this with me. I can't wait to learn more about your culture." As the two delved into a lively discussion about their respective homeworlds, John couldn't help but feel a glimmer of excitement for the adventures that surely lay ahead. Perhaps this cultural exchange would be an even more remarkable experience than he had anticipated. Over the next few weeks, John and Silov settled into a comfortable routine. The young human eagerly absorbed every detail about Zorkan society, marveling at the alien customs and technology. In turn, Silov was endlessly fascinated by John's descriptions of life on Earth. "So you humans mate by joining your reproductive organs together?" Silov asked one day, their tentacles twitching with curiosity. And this produces offspring. How utterly fascinating. John felt his cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Well, yes, that's the basic idea, but it's a bit more, complicated than that. Psylocke nodded sagely. I see. Your species certainly has a unique approach to reproduction. On Zorkan, we simply exude our genetic material into a gelatinous birthing pod, where the young then emerge fully formed. That's, quite different from human reproduction, John said, unsure of how to respond. Indeed, Psylocke exclaimed, which is why I must learn more. As a roommate, it is my duty to ensure you are properly mated and able to contribute to the continuation of your species. John's eyes widened in alarm. Wait, what? Psylocke, I don't think that's necessary. Humans are quite capable of finding mates on our own. But Psylocke was undeterred. Nonsense, John Human. I cannot allow you to neglect such an important biological imperative. It is my responsibility to assist you in this matter. Before John could protest further, Psylocke had already glided out of the room, their tentacles trailing behind them with purpose. John sighed, slumping down on the gelatinous couch, already dreading what his alien roommate had in mind. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Psylocke was on a mission, scouring the city for potential human mates for John. The young graduate student found himself dragged to various social gatherings, parties, and even a speed dating event, all the while trying to dissuade Psylocke's persistent matchmaking efforts. Look, Psylocke, I really appreciate you wanting to help, but this isn't necessary, John tried to explain during one particularly awkward encounter. Humans have our own ways of finding partners. You don't need to interfere. Psylocke's bulbous eyes blinked in confusion. But John Human, you must continue your species. How will you do this if you do not mate? I must ensure you are properly paired. John ran a hand through his hair in frustration. It's not that simple, Psylocke. Humans have complex social and emotional factors that go into finding a partner. It's not just about, well, mating. The Zorkum tilted their head, their tentacles swaying thoughtfully. Fascinating. Your species' approach to reproduction is far more intricate than I had realized. Very well, John Human, I will observe and learn. But I cannot simply stand by and let you neglect this vital biological imperative. John sighed, resigning himself to the fact that Psylocke was not going to let this go anytime soon. The human had a sneaking suspicion that his alien roommate was about to embark on a quest that would lead to nothing but chaos and embarrassment. Sure enough, the next day, Psylocke burst into their shared living space, their tentacles quivering with excitement. John Human, I have devised the perfect plan to ensure you find a suitable mate. John braced himself, already dreading what was to come. Okay, Psylocke, let's hear it. You see, I have been observing the mating rituals of your species, and I believe I've identified the key steps. Psylocke began, their voice adopting a lecturing tone. First, we must identify potential mates. Then, we will orchestrate a series of chance encounters to facilitate your courtship. And finally, we will create the ideal conditions for the actual mating process to occur. John's face paled as he listened to Psylocke's plan. Psylocke, I really don't think. No need to worry, John Human. Psylocke interrupted, their tentacles waving dismissively. I have it all figured out. This will be a resounding success, I assure you. With that, the Zorkan darted out of the room, leaving John to stare after them in dismay. The young human couldn't help but feel a sense of dread washing over him. Whatever Psylocke had in mind, he knew it was going to be nothing short of disastrous. Over the next few days, John found himself being dragged to all manner of social gatherings by his relentless Zorkan roommate. Psylocke was on a mission, scouring the city for potential human mates for John. Ah, there is a likely candidate, Psylocke would exclaim, their tentacles gesturing towards an unsuspecting woman at a cafe or a bar. We must engineer a chance encounter for you to initiate courtship. John would groan inwardly, already anticipating the impending disaster. Psylocke, I really don't think this is a good idea. Humans don't exactly respond well to being, forced into these kinds of situations. But the Zorkum was undeterred. Nonsense, John Human. I have meticulously studied your species' mating rituals. This plan is foolproof. And so, Psylocke would proceed to orchestrate the most awkward and comical scenarios, all in the name of facilitating John's courtship. The young human would find himself unceremoniously bumping into the unsuspecting woman, or Psylocke would engineer chance encounters at the local market or social events. "Oh, pardon me, fair human female," Psylocke would exclaim, their tentacles flailing as they accidentally knocked into the woman. "My friend John Human here seems to have caught your eye. Perhaps you would like to engage in the human mating ritual with him." John would cringe, his face flushing with embarrassment as the woman stared at them in bewilderment. "I'm so sorry about this, ma'am." "Psylocke, please, we're making a scene." Inevitably, the encounters would end in disaster, with the poor woman fleeing in confusion or John hastily making his apologies and dragging Psylocke away. But the Zorkum remained undeterred, convinced that their foolproof plan was simply in need of refinement. "You see, John Human, these initial attempts were merely practice runs," Psylocke would explain, their tentacles gesturing emphatically. "Now that I have observed the human mating ritual in action, I am ready to orchestrate the perfect encounter." John could only shake his head in dismay, dreading what his alien roommate had in store next. Sure enough, Psylocke's next scheme was even more outrageous than the last. The Zorkan had somehow convinced a group of their alien friends to join in the efforts, and before John knew it, he found himself at the center of a chaotic scene. "Quickly, John Human, position yourself here," Psylocke instructed, their tentacles guiding John to a carefully chosen spot on the street. "And now, my friends, begin your diversionary tactics." Suddenly, the area erupted into a flurry of activity. Psylocke's alien companions began staging various comical distractions, one Zorkan juggling colorful blobs, another creating a dazzling light display, and yet another engaging passers-by in an impromptu dance number. Amidst the chaos, Psylocke waited with bated breath, their eyes fixed on John. "Remember, John Human, when the unsuspecting female approaches, you must initiate the courtship ritual. Do not let this opportunity slip away." John opened his mouth to protest, but before he could utter a word, a bewildered-looking woman stumbled into the midst of the spectacle, her attention drawn by the commotion. "Ah, there she is," Psylocke exclaimed. "Go, John Human, go." John watched in horror as the woman's gaze fell upon him, her expression shifting from confusion to alarm. He frantically waved his hands, trying to defuse the situation. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry about this. Please, just ignore all of this. It's, a cultural misunderstanding." But the woman was already backing away, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and bewilderment. "I think I'll just be on my way now," she muttered, quickly disappearing into the crowd. Psylocke let out a disappointed trill, their tentacles drooping. "Oh, John Human, I do not understand. That was the perfect mating opportunity. Why did you not initiate the courtship?" John buried his face in his hands, letting out a groan of exasperation. "Psylocke, this is not how human mating works. You're just making a complete mess of things." The Zorkum tilted their head, their eyes filled with confusion and concern. "But I do not understand, John Human. I have studied your species' customs so thoroughly. Why are my plans not succeeding?" John sighed, realizing that his alien roommate was still far from grasping the complexities of human relationships. "Look, Psylocke, let's just go home. We need to have a long talk about this." As they made their way back to their shared living space, John couldn't help but wonder what other disastrous schemes Psylocke had in store. One thing was certain: this was going to be a very long and interesting cultural exchange. Despite John's repeated attempts to dissuade Psylocke, the Zorkan remained steadfastly determined to assist their human roommate in finding a suitable mate. The young graduate student soon found himself the reluctant participant in an ever-escalating series of comical schemes. John Human, I believe I have identified the perfect opportunity for you to initiate the mating ritual, Psylocke announced one day, their tentacles twitching with excitement. John eyed his alien roommate warily. Psylocke, I really don't think this is a good idea. Can't we just let this go? But Psylocke was already in motion, gliding around the room and gesturing grandly. Nonsense. I have meticulously observed the human courtship process, and I am confident that this plan will succeed. Before John could protest further, Psylocke had whisked him away to a bustling city park, where a group of young human women were gathered, chatting and laughing. Ah, there they are, John Human, Psylocke exclaimed, their tentacles pointing towards the group. Now, you must approach them and initiate the courtship ritual. I will provide the necessary chance encounter. John felt his stomach twist with dread. Psylocke, please, can't we just go back home? I really don't want to do this. But the Zorkon was already in motion, their gelatinous form undulating as they made their way towards the unsuspecting women. Suddenly, Psylocke stumbled, their tentacles flailing wildly as they collided with one of the humans. Oh, pardon me, fair maiden, Psylocke cried, their voice a gurgling symphony of contrition. I seem to have lost my balance. And look, you have now encountered my human roommate, John. John watched in mortification as the women turned their bewildered gazes towards him. He plastered on a sheepish smile, hoping to diffuse the awkward situation. Hi, sorry about that. Psylocke can be a bit, clumsy sometimes. One of the women raised a skeptical eyebrow. Okay, well, no harm done, I guess. Though I'm not sure why your friend is trying to set us up. Psylocke's tentacles swayed eagerly. But of course, John Human is in need of a suitable mate, and I have taken it upon myself to assist him in this crucial endeavor. John felt his face flush with embarrassment as the women exchanged amused glances. Psylocke, I really don't think. Before he could finish his sentence, Psylocke had already intervened, their tentacles gently nudging John towards the group of women. Come, John Human, do not be shy. Introduce yourself and begin the courtship ritual. Feeling utterly mortified, John reluctantly stepped forward, offering the women an awkward smile. Hi, I'm John. Sorry about all this. My roommate is still learning about human customs. The women politely nodded, some even suppressing giggles. One of them, a friendly-looking redhead, stepped forward. Well, it's nice to meet you, John. I'm Sarah. Don't worry, we understand your roommate is just trying to help. Psylocke let out a delighted trill, their tentacles swaying enthusiastically. Excellent, excellent. You see, John Human, I told you my plan would succeed. Now, you must engage in the mating ritual with this female. John's eyes widened in alarm as the women erupted into laughter. Psylocke, I really don't think. But the Zorkon was already pushing him closer to Sarah, their tentacles guiding his movements. Come, John Human, you must make the first move. Initiate the courtship. Desperately trying to salvage the situation, John turned to Sarah with an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry about this. Psylocke is, well, they're still learning about human dating customs. I promise I'm not usually this, weird. Sarah chuckled, shaking her head in amusement. It's okay, really. I can tell your roommate means well, even if they're a bit misguided. Psylocke let out a disappointed trill, their tentacles drooping slightly. But the mating ritual has not been initiated. John Human, you must. Psylocke, I think it's time we head back home, John interrupted, gently steering his alien roommate away from the bemused group of women. I think we need to have another talk about how this whole human courtship thing works. As they walked back to their shared living space, John couldn't help but wonder just how much more chaos Psylocke had in store. One thing was certain, his alien roommate was nothing if not persistent in their quest to ensure John's successful mating. After the latest disastrous attempt at orchestrating John's mating ritual, the young human finally decided it was time to have a serious talk with his alien roommate. All right, Psylocke, We really need to sit down and discuss this whole human courtship thing, John said, gesturing for Psylocke to join him on the gelatinous couch. The Zulkan's tentacles twitched with anticipation. Yes, John Human, I agree. We must ensure you are properly mated so that you can contribute to the continuation of your species. John took a deep breath, bracing himself for what was sure to be a delicate and potentially awkward conversation. Okay, Xyloth, let me try to explain this as clearly as I can. Humans don't just mate on command. It's a much more complex process that involves a lot of emotional and social factors. Psylocke's bulbous eyes blinked in confusion. Emotional and social factors? I do not understand. On Zorkan, we simply exude our genetic material into a birthing pod and the young emerge fully formed. Why is the human mating ritual so complicated? John rubbed the back of his neck, searching for the right words. Well, you see, for humans, finding a partner is about more than just reproduction. We have feelings and personal preferences that play a big role in who we choose to be with. The Zorkan tilted their head, their tentacles swaying thoughtfully. Ah, I see. So this courtship process is about more than just mating. It involves the humans developing how do you say, emotional connection with one another. Exactly, John exclaimed, relieved that Psylocke was starting to grasp the concept. Humans need to feel a sense of compatibility, attraction, and mutual understanding before they decide to, well, mate. Psylocke's expression shifted to one of fascination. Fascinating. Your species' approach to reproduction is far more intricate than I had realized. And this emotional connection, it is a crucial component of the human mating ritual. John nodded. Yes, absolutely. Without that emotional bond, the mating process just doesn't work for us. It's not just about physical compatibility. The Zorkan's tentacles twitched as they processed this information. I see. This explains why my previous attempts to orchestrate your mating were unsuccessful. I was too focused on the physical aspects without considering the emotional factors. That's right, John said, relieved that Psylocke was finally starting to understand. Humans need time to get to know each other, to build trust and affection. It's not something that can be forced or rushed. Psylocke let out a contemplative gurgle. Fascinating. Your species' approach to reproduction is far more nuanced than I had anticipated. I must admit, I am both intrigued and slightly overwhelmed by the complexities involved. John couldn't help but chuckle. Yeah, it's a lot to take in, isn't it? Believe me, the human mating ritual can be confusing even for us humans sometimes. The Zorkan nodded solemnly. I see. Well, John Human, I appreciate you taking the time to educate me on this matter. It is clear that I have much to learn about the intricacies of human courtship and mating. John felt a sense of relief wash over him. I'm glad you understand, Psylocke. I know you were just trying to help, but this is something I need to figure out on my own, in my own time. Psylocke's tentacles reached out, gently patting John's arm. Of course, John Human, I will refrain from further interference in your mating rituals. However, if you ever need assistance, please do not hesitate to ask. John smiled, feeling a newfound appreciation for his alien roommate. Thanks, Psylocke. I'll keep that in mind. As the two settled into a comfortable silence, John couldn't help but wonder what other cultural differences and discoveries lay ahead. One thing was certain, with Psylocke as his roommate, his time on Zorkan was sure to be full of surprises, both delightful and chaotic. After their serious discussion about the complexities of human courtship, Psylocke seemed to have a newfound respect for the emotional and social factors involved in finding a mate. However, the Zorkan's determined nature soon resurfaced, and John found himself once again dragged into another one of his alien roommate's schemes. John Human, I believe I have devised the perfect plan to assist you in finding a suitable mate, Psylocke announced one day, their tentacles quivering with excitement. John eyed his roommate warily. Psylocke, I thought we agreed you wouldn't interfere with my personal life anymore. The Zorkan's bulbous eyes blinked innocently. Oh, but this is not interference, John Human. This is merely a helpful suggestion. Please hear me out. Sensing that resistance was futile, John resigned himself to listening to Xyloth's latest idea. All right, fine. What is it? Xyloth's tentacles swayed with enthusiasm. You see, I have been observing the courting rituals of your species more closely, and I believe I have identified the key steps to success. John braced himself, already anticipating the chaos that was sure to unfold. First, Xyloth continued, we must gather a group of my fellow Zorkon friends to assist in orchestrating the perfect chance encounter for you to initiate the mating ritual. John groaned inwardly. Xyloth, I thought we talked about this. Humans don't respond well to being forced into these kinds of situations. The Zorkon waved a tentacle dismissively. Nonsense, John Human. With my careful planning and the help of my friends, we will create the ideal conditions for you to find a suitable mate. Before John could protest further, Xyloth had already darted out of the room, their tentacles trailing behind them. A few days later, the Zorkon returned, a gaggle of their alien companions in tow. Behold, John Human, the team that will assist in your mating endeavor, Xyloth announced, gesturing grandly towards the group. John eyed the assortment of strange, gelatinous creatures with a mix of fascination and trepidation. Oh, hi, everyone. I'm not sure this is such a good idea. But Xyloth was already in motion, their tentacles flailing as they outlined the plan. Listen closely, my friends. We must create a series of chance encounters for John Human to interact with potential human mates. Each of you will play a crucial role in distracting the unsuspecting females, allowing John to initiate the courtship ritual. The Zorkon companions let out a chorus of excited trills, their tentacles swaying in agreement. John watched the scene unfold with growing dismay. Xyloth, I really don't think this is going to work. Can't we just? No time for doubts, John Human. Xyloth interrupted, their voice brimming with determination. We must act quickly before the opportune moment passes us by. Now, everyone, to your positions. Suddenly, the room erupted into a flurry of activity as Xyloth's alien friends scattered, each taking on their assigned roles in the elaborate scheme. John found himself being ushered out of the living space, his protests falling on deaf tentacles. Xyloth, please, I really don't want to do this, John pleaded, but the Zorkon was already pushing him towards the door. Trust me, John Human, this plan is foolproof, Xyloth assured him, their eyes gleaming with confidence. Now, go forth and find your mate. With that, John found himself unceremoniously shoved out of the apartment, the door sliding shut behind him. Letting out a resigned sigh, he began making his way through the bustling city streets, bracing himself for whatever chaos Xyloth and their alien companions had in store. As he walked, John couldn't help but wonder just how much more embarrassment and hilarity he would have to endure before his alien roommate finally accepted that human courtship was a far more nuanced and delicate process than Xyloth had initially realized. One thing was certain, with Xyloth's determination and the group of eager Zorkon assistants, the events that were about to unfold were sure to be nothing short of shockingly hilarious. As John made his way through the bustling city streets, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread. Xyloth and their Zorkon companions had orchestrated yet another elaborate scheme to facilitate his mating ritual, and the young human knew it could only end in disaster. Suddenly, a commotion up ahead caught his attention. A group of Zorkon were engaged in a series of peculiar antics, drawing the curious gaze of passers-by. Look, there he is. Xyloth's voice rang out, their tentacles gesturing towards John. John Human, come. We have created the perfect opportunity for you to initiate the courtship ritual. John groaned inwardly, reluctantly making his way towards the spectacle. As he drew closer, he could see the Zorkon companions carrying out their assigned roles, one juggling brightly colored blobs, another creating a dazzling light display, and yet another engaging unsuspecting humans in an impromptu dance number. Ah, John Human, there you are, Xyloth exclaimed, their tentacles swaying with excitement. Now, remember, when the potential mate approaches, you must initiate the courtship ritual. Do not let this chance slip away. John opened his mouth to protest, but before he could utter a word, a young woman stumbled into the midst of the commotion, her attention drawn by the bizarre scene unfolding before her. "Oh dear, pardon me," the woman said, her eyes wide with confusion as she tried to navigate the chaos. Siloth's tentacles shot out, gently guiding the woman towards John. "Excellent, excellent. John Human, this is your opportunity. Go, go." John felt his face flush with mortification as the woman's gaze landed on him. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry about all this. My roommate is, trying to help me find a mate, but it's really not necessary." The woman blinked in bewilderment, her eyes darting between John and the gleefully gesturing Siloth. "A mate? I'm sorry, but I'm not sure I understand what's going on here." Siloth's tentacles reached out, gently nudging John towards the woman. "John Human, you must initiate the courtship ritual. This is the perfect chance." "Siloth, please, this isn't," John began, but his words were drowned out by the sudden arrival of another group of Zorkon, who had apparently joined the scheme. "Quickly, John Human, position yourself here," one of the new Zorkon companions instructed, their tentacles guiding John to a specific spot. "We will create the ideal conditions for you to engage in the mating ritual." Suddenly, the area erupted into a whirlwind of activity. The Zorkon companions launched into a series of increasingly bizarre and chaotic antics, drawing the attention of more and more bewildered onlookers. John watched in horror as the woman took a step back, her expression shifting from confusion to alarm. I think I'll just be going now," she muttered, quickly disappearing into the crowd. Siloth let out a disappointed trill, their tentacles drooping. "Oh, John Human, I do not understand. That was the perfect opportunity for you to initiate the courtship ritual. Why did you not seize it?" John buried his face in his hands, groaning in exasperation. "Siloth, this is not how human courtship works. You're just making a complete mess of things." The Zorkon's bulbous eyes blinked with concern. "But I do not comprehend, John Human. I have carefully studied your species' mating rituals, and I believe this plan would be a resounding success." John shook his head, feeling a mixture of frustration and amusement. "Look, Siloth, let's just go home. I think we need to have another long talk about this." As they made their way back to their shared living space, John couldn't help but marvel at the sheer absurdity of the situation. Siloth's relentless efforts to orchestrate his mating ritual had led to one comical mishap after another, leaving a trail of bewildered onlookers in their wake. But despite the chaos, John couldn't help but feel a growing fondness for his alien roommate. Siloth's unwavering determination, even in the face of failure, was endearing in its own way. As they walked, John couldn't help but wonder what other surprises and hilarity lay in store for them. After the latest disastrous attempt to facilitate John's mating ritual, the young human and his alien roommate Iloth made their way back to their shared living space in a somber silence. As they settled onto the gelatinous couch, Siloth's tentacles drooped with a sense of defeat. "John Human, I do not understand. My carefully crafted plan was foolproof, yet it still did not result in your successful mating." John let out a heavy sigh, running a hand through his hair. "Siloth, I've tried to explain this to you before. Human courtship and mating isn't something that can be forced or orchestrated. It's a complex process that involves a lot of emotional and social factors." The Zorkon's bulbous eyes blinked with confusion. "But I have studied the human mating rituals so thoroughly. I do not comprehend why my attempts have been met with such failure." John placed a reassuring hand on Siloth's tentacle. "Look, I know you were just trying to help, and I appreciate that. But the truth is, humans need to find their own partners in their own time. It's not something that can be rushed or manipulated." Siloth let out a contemplative gurgle. "I see. So the emotional connection you mentioned before is truly vital to the human mating process." I had not fully grasped the significance of this factor. John nodded. Exactly. Humans need to feel a genuine sense of compatibility, attraction, and trust before they're ready to take that step. The Zorkon's tentacles twitched as they processed this information. Fascinating. Your species' approach to reproduction is far more nuanced than I have anticipated. I must admit, I am both intrigued and slightly overwhelmed by the complexities involved. John couldn't help but chuckle. Yeah, it's a lot to take in, isn't it? Believe me, even we humans sometimes struggle to figure it all out. Siloth's expression shifted to one of understanding. I see. Well, John Human, I appreciate you taking the time to educate me on this matter. It is clear that I have much more to learn about the intricacies of human courtship and mating. John felt a wave of relief wash over him. I'm glad you understand, Siloth. I know you were just trying to help, but this is something I need to figure out on my own, in my own time. The Zorkon's tentacles reached out, gently patting John's arm. Of course, John Human, I will refrain from further interference in your mating rituals. However, if you ever need assistance, please do not hesitate to ask. John smiled, feeling a newfound appreciation for his alien roommate. Thanks, Siloth. I'll keep that in mind. As the two settled into a comfortable silence, John couldn't help but reflect on the eventful weeks that had transpired. Despite the chaos and embarrassment, he had genuinely come to care for his quirky Zorkon roommate. You know, Siloth, John said, breaking the silence, even though your attempts to help me find a mate were, well, a bit misguided, I have to admit, I'm really glad you're my roommate. Siloth's tentacles swayed with delight. As am I, John Human. Our time together has been most enlightening, despite the occasional. The Zorkon paused, searching for the right word. Mishap. John chuckled, shaking his head in amusement. That's one way to put it. But you know, I think I've learned a lot about Zorkon culture too. It's been an eye-opening experience. Siloth let out a delighted trill. Indeed, John Human. Our cultural exchange has been a resounding success, in my humble opinion. And who knows, perhaps one day you will find a suitable human mate, and I can assist in the proper Zorkon mating rituals. John raised a hand, gently interrupting Siloth. Let's take that one step at a time, okay? For now, I'm just happy to have you as my roommate, and to learn more about your world. The Zorkon nodded, their tentacles swaying in agreement. Very well, John Human. I look forward to many more adventures with you by my side. As the two friends settled back into their comfortable routine, John couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude and excitement for the journey that lay ahead. With Siloth as his quirky, well-meaning companion, he knew there would be no shortage of hilarity and surprises in store.